Hello everyone, hope all is well, and thanks for tuning into Moose Motion. So we're going to work on a drawing this video, a little different, taking a small break from the Skyline project, and well, we're going to draw one of my cars actually, a 1986 Iroc-Z. Hope you enjoy! Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well, and thank you for tuning into Moose Motion. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new, and be sure you have your post notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new content. Anyway, thank you for your support, it's highly appreciated. So personally, what I like to start out with is, well, a nice light sketch of all the main body lines of the actual car, and using, well, your photo reference quite heavily because you're working with a blank piece of paper, and, well, we're gonna basically turn that blank piece of paper into, well, what would look like a car. And I personally like to start with doing the front bumper first, as well as the hood line. As well as one thing I would recommend for people drawing out there, especially when it comes to your car, so you'd be dragging your hand across that paper quite a lot, is just putting down a extra little piece of scrap paper to cover up your hand, so you're essentially not smudging things nearly as bad as you would be with your hand. As I was saying before though, what I like to start with is essentially the front bumper as well as the hood line, so basically you can get that angle at the start because that's probably the two basic lines that you're going to be basing the entire geometry of the car on. So you want to make sure that your front end as well as your hood is lined properly, as well as the windshield, and then work your way from there. Now, seeing how this is technically a concept drawing of what I want my car to look like in the future, I figured I would take some of the rims I've had sitting in boxes for a while out of the boxes and use them, well, as a reference to actually draw them out. As you can see, I plan on, well, putting some pretty big fat tires on the back of this thing in particular, because, yeah, I like burnouts. At any rate, I tried getting some footage of the car, but unfortunately I have an iPhone and I shoot everything on it as well as do all the editing, and trying to transfer files over from Facebook over to my iPhone so I could edit onto the editor on my YouTube thing. It was just a little too much personally to handle and wasn't worth the time and investment. So there is a little picture of my real life car at the end of this video. Now, as far as drawing out rims go, usually I don't actually have a 3D reference sitting in front of me on what I would actually like to put on it, so this is kind of a rare opportunity. Usually you're going to want to take your time because it's a very tight area, and if you make any mistakes, your pencil lines are unfortunately going to show through, so bear in mind the rims is something that's going to take some time and something that you're probably going to want to be very careful with. Now that we got essentially the entire sketch done of the car and all the little parts that are kind of picky and hard to do, we can start actually outlining all of the lines that we just did. So essentially trace over what you just did, darkening it out a little bit more so it gives it a little bit more, well, stature from the actual page, because eventually we're going to start adding shadows and coloring and various other things, which is going to make those lines a little hard to see at times, and we're probably going to go over them even more at that point, just to make sure that we don't lose track of where we are on the car, because once you start kind of losing where your body lines are and you start coloring things, you tend to get lost, and that's when mistakes happen and you can't exactly fix them at that point. So make sure you have some things that are very visible. I also might note that this drawing is obviously not the car that I currently have. This is a concept drawing, so this is essentially what I would like to make my car look like one day. So obviously it's got some RS body kits from, well, the Iroc-Z series, because there was an RS one, wasn't as nearly common as the basic Iroc-Z. I put a RS grill on it as well. A cowl hood is something that I possibly considering, although to be honest it doesn't exactly have a hood right now and I don't really plan on putting one on it in the near future, as well as it doesn't have a roll cage currently, and I would obviously like to get one for safety purposes, as well as putting a 4-point harness in the thing because I would like to take it to the track quite a lot someday. As well, it obviously doesn't have a big drag racing spoiler, so yet again this thing is obviously just a concept drawing. Plus, I also found out many years ago that E36 BMW headlights actually fit inside these cars surprisingly well, and it actually looks really good. It gives it more of a modern look, so I personally really like it, and that's why I drew the concept car here with, well, BMW E36 headlights. Now, as far as drawing over the interiors on my cars, I don't really like to get too much into detail, given that it's, well, mostly an exterior view that I generally like to do. So you don't exactly see a whole lot of the interior, just kind of less is more there. Add some of the basic stuff that you would see, like the seats and parts of the roll cage that would be obviously seen through the windows. Other than that, less is more. Don't go too detailed on it because you're going to lose your mind, and there's been times in the past where I was in high school where I remember trying overworking it and I basically broke through the paper, and well, you never want to do that because then you spend many hours on something that you're basically going to want to throw out in the end. Now, it's also important to keep your piece of paper clean because, well, even with that little scrap piece of paper protecting your hand, it doesn't exactly prevent smudges from happening, so be sure to erase things once in a while just to keep things nice and clean. Now, personally, this is one of the scary moments, adding color to your drawing, because, well, a lot of the time you can lose some of those precious details, so personally, your first few layers are going to want to be very light. Don't press very hard on your pencil at all. Just basically lightly color in where you want your colors to be and essentially work it in layer by layer, not pressing too hard till you essentially have everything set down and where you exactly want it. And usually after the first layer of color, I like to be, well, extra safe and just go over the main lines of the car one more time just to make sure they stand out, and that way I don't actually lose track and accidentally color over something that I don't want to. Now that the bulk of the work is essentially over, we can add one more layer of color to the blue and the black areas, or whatever it is you're essentially working on in particular, and then add in your highlights after that, and well, then shortly after that your drawing is essentially done, so not too much more to go. Now that the little Camaro essentially has all the color added in, now we can start working on essentially the highlight spots or the reflective areas in the paint, which generally kind of show more of a white color. So for that, what I like to do is just use a white Prismacolor and blend that into basically the background color, kind of essentially smudging and blending it in there, making it look like it's a little bit more reflective and has a little bit more light bouncing off that section of the paint than the rest of it. Speaking of light, I do apologize for the wonkier, darker amber lighting for this couple scenes here. I'm not sure exactly what happened. If I do recall correctly, I think my pug was hanging out by my feet at the art table, unfortunately, so she probably bumped into it a few times, so blame the pug. I'm not sure what to do about that thing sometimes. There's been one moment in particular where I lost 336 frames of a Wendigo talking because she walked into a light set. So, I love my dog, but yeah, there are moments where she can be not exactly handy. Now we're going to do some shadowing or shading on the little car, which is generally a step you kind of want to save for last. As awkward as it sounds, sometimes it is handy to do it ahead of time. However, personally, I like to save it towards the end more or less at this point, just to kind of prevent, well, things from smudging and having less cleanup to do in the long run, and the less time with an eraser is always kind of nice. Now, one tool that I generally like to really use when it comes to, well, shadowing in particular is called a smudge stick. So if you're doing any sort of shadowing on a drawing, see if you can pick up a set of smudge sticks, because those things are quite handy tools when it comes to, well, doing shadows. Now, just a few finishing touches, like, well, the car's name, as well as your signature, just to kind of let everybody know that this thing is completely finished off and who the creator is. And now we'll get into some beauty shots. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a like on this video so I know my hard work was appreciated, as well as my artistic abilities that, well, I've been working on for years, and this is actually the first time I've gotten to draw my personal car as a concept car. After owning this thing for over 10 years, it's kind of odd that I've only drawn it till now. At any rate, leave a comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new. At any rate, thank you for watching, and someday this thing will be, well, along with those cars in the background, and I'll make a 3D model of this thing and build it along with the car that I own now. Hey, thanks for watching. You made it this far during the video, so be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new. At any rate, that's enough from me. Till next time, take it easy.